People of Reddit who knew celebrities before they were famous, how different do they act now? Jack Black is the same person he was as a teenager. Funny, kind, caring, and spreading that joy of music. Not personally, but everyone in my town has a Dave Chappelle story. I worked with a guy who said he knew him. I called BS. We then met Dave and they were actually friends. Basically, no one in town thought he would be much. Now he is a local hero, really down to earth. You literally see this man just chilling in the park in normal cheap clothes. Nothing has changed him. You wouldn't think he was famous. Maybe homeless but not famous. A close family friend was best friends with Tom Cruise before he got famous. I didn't believe her and she showed me pictures they have taken together, like a Vegas road trip, camping, etc. He was really awesome, but as soon as he got an ounce of fame it went to his head and he became very arrogant and a fame whore. I can't remember before my aunt was famous. Alex Kingston played River Song in Doctor Who. But I remember going to her wedding and meeting Matt Smith, who played the Doctor in Doctor Who, and him fixing my flip-flop. The best moment of my life ever. I had a friend in high school whose cousin is Kendrick Lamar. He said Kendrick's pretty much still the same guy. Acts the same around friends and family. Just with millions of dollars now. My aunt was best friends with Madonna in high school, stayed friends until she got famous, and she turned into a completely different person in the worst way possible. This is one of those threads I wish I could tell the serious ones and the trolls apart. Taylor the Creator, exactly the same. We were all concerned at how bizarre he was. He would call people, a table, or something incredibly random, and the sense of humor caught on in my high school. The fame did nothing. He's still strange and a sweetheart. Family friend of mine actually dated Kurt Cobain before Ms. Love. Apparently they broke up because he wouldn't get a job. Then a little while later he got famous. Can't finish the question for obvious reasons. My mom dated Will Ferrell for a little while. He came round quite a lot and she said he was real down to earth and incredibly funny. However, afterwards they really just lost touch. So we never got to know how he personally changed. My mom says she's still like used to be. My mom and dad still laugh about her dating him. My grandmother and mum were really good friends with George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley from Wham. They got invited to concerts and got to sit in special seats, etc. And a few years ago me and my family stayed with Andrew Ridgeley in his guest house in Cornwall for a weekend. But they seemed to me like they stayed really nice to my grandparents and mum. And Andrew Ridgeley was very kind to my family when we met him. Chris Hemsworth and his brother Liam, both really good blokes before and after they became famous. My best friend is cousins with Tyler Posey. She said he was a sweetheart before his Teen Wolf days and he still is now. I went to high school with Dacre Montgomery. He was a dick with a huge ego in high school and I saw him recently when he came back to his home town and seems like he's still a dick with an even bigger ego now. I can't watch Stranger Things without rolling my eyes every time he comes on screen. I knew Tom Holland at the time he did a Tsunami movie. We were not really friends, but he was so funny and friendly. My aunt had dinner with Keanu Reeves and other people before he did Matrix when he came to Spain. She said that Keanu was very handsome and incredibly polite. Edit. I know that Keanu was famous before Matrix, but my aunt met him before he filmed Matrix. Also, thanks for the upvotes. I had a teacher who taught Drake. Apparently, he was a nice kid but then got really douchey when he started getting famous. My brother knows the guy that Squidward was based off of. Turns out that made him more bitter cause he was made fun of. My aunt went to high school with Obama and apparently he was called Barry. Otherwise he was basically the same. Who knows if these are real, but they make for great reading while on the toilet. I once knew a musician named Neil Cole who was put under a lot of pressure by his record label. He became who you would now know as Neil Diamond. I played drums with Mike Portnoy in high school band and am still friends with his sister, and he is still a cool guy. I knew Cillian Murphy back in secondary school. We didn't go to the same school but mingled a lot. He was a few years older than me. Dude was super quiet, but really damn friendly. I remember when he was cast in 28 Days Later and people were pretty hyped for him. But a good few people didn't think much of it. Once it came out, though, a lot of people changed their tune when they could see him actually act. Amazingly, Mom knew Jeff Bezos' sister in high school. Never really knew him all that well, but she says he was well known to be a greater dickhead. Very full of himself and huge god complex even before he went to Princeton, etc. So really not that much different from what I can tell. I met Noah Centineo when he was in Austin and LA, so that was a little before he started becoming big. I don't know him very well, although he did once babysit me, haha. But I also know his mom, as she is one of my mom's closest friends. My mom does still see Noah sometimes and says he hasn't really changed, and that he comes to his mom's events. Sure says something. Still a sweet gentleman. Peas. Kelly Centineo, though, I do know well. She is amazing. A friend of mine is buddies with Paul Rudd. Says he's exactly the same and a great human. I had an English teacher who went to school with Kanye West. She claimed he was a lame, which honestly doesn't seem to be a secret, as many rappers are seen as outcast before the come up. But the way in which she said it was as if she was still popular and he was still lame, lol. Decent English teacher, I suppose, but possess none of other qualities a good teacher should have. She actually laughed as someone roasted my hairline. My co-worker's dad grew up with Queen Latifah in North Jersey. His whole family loved her because they were about to lose their house, so she paid it off for them. They've never said a bad thing about her. Queen Latifah, if this gets back to you, thanks for what you did for your friends in NJ. Phil's a really cool guy. My dad was good friends with Johnny Depp back in the day. It was around when he was first filming 21 Jump Street. The show, not the movie, lol. My dad says he was really humble and kind and always paid their bar tab. Apparently he was quite generous in giving out lots of free quality cocaine at parties too. Nobody ever believes me when I tell this story, but when I was 15, I met Ariana Grande on Facebook. I was into flirting with random people back then, lol. We talked for a while, shared some jokes and raged comics. After about 2 months of occasional conversations, she made an update on her wall saying that she signed a contract with Nickelodeon, and then I saw her on Victorious. I was dumbstruck when it happened. I went to middle school with Justin Bieber, even played on the school soccer team together. I always thought he was a dick, really stuck up and self-centered. But for the longest time I legitimately thought his name was Justin Bieber, and I would call him that every time I talked to him, and I always wondered why he got too angry. So maybe he was only a dick to me. I knew Brett and Jermaine, Flight of the Conchords, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And met Taika Waititi a few times too. I was a big fan of his art at the time. There was one painting of someone in a bathtub that stuck in my head. I knew Brett better than the others, because he was in a reggae band with my good friend Barnaby. As far as I can tell, they are all exactly the same. My grandfather taught Jack Nicholson in high school math class. Said he was rebellious but wasn't too bad at math. I knew Mike Jones before his record deal. Back then hoes didn't want him. Then he became hot and they were all on him. Jason Momoa used to plow my stepsister. I shook his hand in my living room once. He was not as impressive physically. Then, my 8th grade science teacher dated Bill Nye. Broke up with him because he didn't like kids. My friend went to high school with James Charles. Apparently he was a total dickbag. I went to high school with Post Malone. We graduated the same year. He always wore a suit to class and was that nerdy, dedicated kid. Glad to see how his life turned out. I hoped nothing for the best for him and now I listen to him all the time, haha. I'm just a rando to him though. We never really talked. Typo. My brother used to play basketball with a bunch of people in high school. Among those who would sometimes join in was Pete Davidson. My brother said he got ripped on a ton and no one really liked him. But that might just be because he wasn't great at basketball. Leon Bridges' ego is now a lot bigger. Still the same nice guy though. Issa Rae, still the same. Really down to earth. Just more skeptical of people and their motives. I dated a UFC world champion of his class and he's so full of himself now and treats PPL as if they're disposable. Can't say his name as may give away who I am. My host family mom in Dublin told me Bono from U2 was a clumsy waiter at her wedding. I dance battled the guy who is currently dating Madonna a couple times. He is an amazing battle dancer and I lost every single time. Chris Pratt grew up and went to school about 10 to 15 minutes away from me. I've heard countless stories of him pulling his dick out on the bus and known people who made out with him back in the day. He was a real goober from the few people I've heard talk about him. Though like many in my area he definitely leans toward the ultra-conservative side and puts on quite a bit of a Hollywood act. My parents went to high school with some of the family members from Duck Dynasty. And apparently they were clean-shaven and had a very preppy look to them. When watching the show I just cannot picture them being preppy high schoolers. No matter how hard I try. Friend of mine was friends with Tom Hanks in high school and went to prom with him. He still writes her personalized B-Day cards on one of his typewriters. My family went to the same health club as Obama before he was president. He was cool. I was a little kid and he swam with his daughters and me. And he played hella basketball. Pretty sure that MF could dunk. A teacher of mine went to high school with Ryan Reynolds. He didn't talk much about their relationship in class but about 2 years ago, this teacher was among the 50 people Ryan Reynolds followed on Instagram. I know, Instagram bad. So I assume that they're still good friends. Thanks for watching. If you like, please subscribe.